Welcome back to the channel, folks, and to another battle report. We had another of our monthly meetups with the players that we know from around Scotland. If anybody's in Scotland watching this and you're not coming along, get in touch. You might want to get involved. We play 2 games. It's not a highly competitive setting. You can be as competitive as you want in those 2 games, but we're not looking for like a tournament win or such likes. So there's plenty of opportunity to catch up with your mates and have a good chat during the games and between the games and during the games. Now, I've got 2 games for you. The first one went sort of to a full conclusion, and the second one was over before it even started, just about. So the first game, that was Peter against Alex. Now, Peter had a US company. I'm not 100% sure of the makeup, so I'm not sure what is co-formation here, but he had a Sherman company and had a HQ of 2 75mm Shermans, a platoon of 4 and a platoon of 5 76mm Shermans, with another platoon of 4 75mm Shermans. So that's a lot of Shermans. They are the aggressive trained guys. And a platoon of 4 105 Shermans, platoon of infantry, and 3 mortar half-tracks. So there's a lot of stuff there. And it was up against Alex, who brought a list along the likes of which I've never seen, and I was really interested to see how it played. So it's a Hetzer company, Hetzer formation, company HQ of 2, then 3 platoons of 4 Hetzers. So it's 14 Hetzers, right, backed up with an elephant, and then 3 Wesps and 6 Hummels. Very different. I'm not sure how it would defend, but he didn't really have to defend as such during the day, so he was quite happy. So we're going to see how that list gets on. The mission that they rolled was free for all, so that was going to work out okay for both sides because they'd get everything on the table. In this mission, it's critical who goes first. Remember, if you want to be firing artillery or not worried about having overworked or slow firing weapons. As it is, Alex went first. He rolled the highest dice, and he's got an army which is almost exclusively made up of artillery and overworked slow firing type teams. So he wasn't going to be flying straight off the bat with dramatic moves in turn 1. So let's go over to the game and see how it played out. So here's Alex's first movement, getting himself into a position where he can negate any cover from low terrain by being on the tall terrain of the hills, which is a very, very useful firing position. Just checking his ranges there. Keeping himself hull down on the hill. The elephant doesn't care. It says, come ahead, I'll deal with you. You can see Peter's hiding as much as he can, but he's not been able to get everything out of line of sight, and certainly here in the middle, this low terrain is giving him no protection whatsoever from all of the firing from the hills. But Alex chose the side he wanted to attack from, and that was that. You can see, and Peter's got his infantry supported by the short 75s and the Stuarts if needed out on the far flank heading for the buildings. Alex's first turn of shooting with the elephant missed, and the Hetzers suffered from the slow firing rule or overworked rule. I can't remember which one it is, but that penalty of 1 meant that they didn't hit much. They just got a half track, but it reduced those half tracks down to 2 barrels, which is a good thing, and the elephant is just shooted and scooted forward. Peter's first turn, and he's pushed things as fast as he can up to the cover of the buildings in the woods, with infantry following on as they can, but staying in cover, though it's, to be honest, with the low terrain it doesn't matter too much here. It can be seen over the terrain from the hill anyway. Let's just have a quick peek around here. So these are going to try and deal with the Hetzers at the back of the town. He's brought his 76 mils over together. There's a nice strong force. They're coming from behind those buildings there, and the 105 mils are moving up to those buildings, so they're out of line of sight but can still fire bombardments. And then in terms of shooting, he managed to get a bail on the near Hetzers, a kill on the Hetzers in the hill in the middle, and he ranged in on the Hummels, but with just 2 mortars and an anti-tank value of just 1. It didn't cause any damage, but it's there now. It's ranged in. You know, he may bail out a Hummel at one point or other, and you can see the 76 is there, just going to stand their ground and duke it out with the Hetzers. Alec has got his Hetzer on the near hill back in. He's moved his company command up to the central hill there to support the couple of Hetzers on that position, and he's basically just firing down range now. Now he's shooting at the 76s as much as possible. You'd expect him to be getting a lot more damage than he's so far managed, because these guys are effectively just at long range and in the open, so just looking for force. But he's not getting too much traction early doors, and the elephant is only got 2 dice and it is missing. Now he's ranging his artillery in over this side to try and deal with the threat of the Stuarts coming in on his flank. So at the near hill, even with this help of the elephant, there's not too much happening. These guys got a couple of bails on them, but that's about it. And then over here, a bit more success with a couple of 76s from the large platoon knocked out, and 1 bailed, but not destroying the unit yet. The bailed out tanks from the near platoon are back in, but the central one isn't. Now Peter's continuing to push on the flank, you can see there, using the wood for cover. 1 tank's got stuck outside, and they're moving his infantry to avoid the ranged in markers. The Stuarts are moving up, got a very tempting target of getting some lightly armoured Hummels, can't blame them for that. And that central platoon of 76s, Peter's decided, if I'm getting clobbered, I might as well keep moving forward and get into the teeth of the enemy. And then in terms of shooting, they managed to kill one of those Hummels with the Stuarts. The Shermans managed to bail a Hetzer, that's the ordinary 75s. And remember, the Americans have got these stabilisers affecting them the whole time. But they managed to get the second in command, which was a good hit. So that central area is taking a bit of a clobbering just now. On the near hill, one of the 76s has bagged a Hetzer, which is good shooting. Once again, to be honest, at long range and in cover. And then the 105s have ranged in and managed to bail out one of the Hummels. So 1 Hummel dead, 1 Hummel bailed. In terms of motivation, the bailed Hummel didn't get back in for Alex, otherwise everything was fine. So he's only done a bit of movement in the town there that you can see. The Hetzers have moved up to have a go at the Stuarts, and otherwise he's staying put, bringing in his artillery in this big concentration. He's been able to get Stuarts, Shermans and some infantry under the templates. And then in terms of shooting, well, the Stuarts bit the dust from the fire of 4 Hetzers, which is a bit unfortunate. And then on the hill, with the help of the company command and the artillery for bales, Alec is starting to take out this Sherman platoon, which is now beginning to look a little bit exposed, and the hits are coming in. It's at short range, so the armour's only going to be 6, and Alex is only going to need force to hit. His tanks are stationary with anti-tank 11, so there's a hell of a lot of saves having to be rolled and a hell of a lot of saves getting failed. This platoon is really starting to thin down and that there's nothing operational at all. On the near side, the elephant got a bale this turn. It's still not really doing what it should be doing, but the Hetzers have joined in and managed to get a couple of kills. So there's one bailed and one killed. Thankfully the company commando are right beside them for rerolls. So Peter's got one bailed 76 back in, keeping the platoon in good spirits on the near side. And then over at the wood, he's got one of his 75s back in, which also keeps that platoon in good spirits because there's one at the back too. And he's now got to think, what am I going to do with the two remaining Stuarts? So the 76s, he decided to move them up. The Stuarts have moved over into the town to flank the Hetzers that killed their compatriots. But he only got a bale there, which isn't so good. And then he's continued to fire up onto the hill. He's not having much luck there, as you can see. That's a ranged in marker on the hill from the 105s. These guys have come through. Once again though, because of the stabilisers, they're getting lots of extra shots on those Hummels, but not getting any hits. Against the near hill, needless to say, he's ignoring the elephant and just try to wear down these Hetzers, but he needs 6s again because they're at long range here. Long range, concealed and careful. But he does manage to get a bale. This means he may be beginning to get a numerical superiority on the near flank. The 105s continue to fire at the Hummels, but can only manage a bale. For motivation, Alex doesn't get to the near Hetzer in. He gets the Hummel back in, but doesn't get to the Hetzer in on the far side of the table in the town. I should say the Hummel bailed out by the Stuarts, though, is still bailed out. It's not got back in for a couple of turns now. Once again, not a lot of movement from Alex, just these Hetzers closing in on the Stuarts. Everything else is in a good firing position. So, for instance, these guys in the woods are getting it pretty heavy just now from both sets of artillery and the Hetzers. There is just 2 Shermans left alive in there, and one of them has just ended up bailed, or destroyed rather, and the survivor ends up bailed. So there's not looking like much hope for this side of the table, especially as the Stuarts also bit the dust. The Hetzers manage to finish them off as well. So that side is looking like it's stalled for Peter and the Yanks. So the last 2 Stuarts have gone, and over in the wood, the fire they were taking has left just 1 Sherman. Now the sun has come out, guys, so apologies for the shadows, but on the near side, even with the help of the elephant, they're not really making any progress against that platoon of Shermans that has just stood there taunting them for the whole game, and all they've managed to do is get another bale. So there's still 2 Shermans, 2 76s plus the company command down there. That 76 got back in, so there's no last stand there, but the Sherman in the wood fails and legs it. The Stuarts in the town, I think there's still 1 left alive and kicking, doesn't run away. Up the street there, one's going to take a few pot shots, and then Peter decides time to go for it. That elephant has been edging forward with shooting and scooting type moves. There's 1 bailed out Hetzer, so he's going to go for it. He's got flanking shots on the elephant. The Stuart doesn't do anything. It tries. The infantry are kind of the only thing left over there saying, oh dear. The company command, though, got killed and jumped over into one of the nearby Hetzers, and there's another bale again from the 105s on a Hummel. So there's not a lot left over that side, but there's still some damage getting done. It's more about for the Yanks if they can do anything over on the near side. So lots of flanking fire, but it all come down to this guy here. He got 2 hits on the side with his anti-tank 12 against side armour 7. And let's see, are there any saves? Nope, I'm afraid not. So 2 firepowers, they both pass, so there is a dead elephant. And the Shermans to the front there managed to get a hit on the Hetzers. It got mistaken targeted onto the bailed one and killed it. So there's now 2 Hetzers holding that objective. In terms of motivation, Alex got his Hummels back in action, and his one surviving Hetzer on the middle hill stayed. So it's now time for him to get a move on. So he's moved his Hetzers out the flank, actually heading towards the objective. He's moving his Hummels over to get some direct fire onto the 76s threatening his objective. Company commander is also moving over, which means he's leaving one Hetzer behind, which is going to have to pass tests on its own. The objective race has started. So the Wesps stayed put so they could keep dropping a barrage on these infantry. The infantry never managed to dig in the whole time they were in the wood, so they are taking casualties. Now I think the Stuart, by the way, actually ran away last turn, and the Sherman stayed but sat there bailed, because that Hetzer on the hill stayed put to shoot it just to finish it off. On the way towards the objective, the Hetzers are machine gunning the infantry in the wood, hoping to stop them from interfering with their charge. And then the Hummels firing at the 76s, they did really well. They managed to get I think the Hetzer commander got one, and then the Hummels got another, leaving just one tank in that platoon, and that's a critical platoon with his anti-tank 12. But Alex still does not have much left to defend that objective. There's a lot of Shermans out there. So on the far side, Peter's not got much left. The Stuarts are gone, Shermans are gone, infantry shot to bits, and then over here the 76 stayed, which is useful for him. And sorry about all the shadows, folks, the sun really came out big time. Now Peter's looking to see what he can do to get around the flank. He's thinking about and making actually successful blitz moves, so he can then get around the flank of these Hetzers with a front armour 7. So everything is starting to pour around here. Not everything is going to get past the front, and there was a lot of questions around concealment and such like, but it was getting really important. You know, this is going to be critical. It could be the turn that sets up victory for the Yanks. So lots and lots of Shermans moving around. That surviving 76 is coming in on the side. That could do a lot of damage. And then to help protect them, those mortars have put down a smoke barrage. Perfect timing for smoke, critical point in the game. And in terms of shooting, the 76 on the side just got a bail. The tanks to the front didn't manage, tanks to the side, sorry, didn't manage anything. That's on the open edge of the table. And the 76s to the front, they managed to get another kill. So there's no active tanks around the objective, but Peter did not start within 4 inches of the objective, so it's still game on for Alex. Remember, he's pushing for the objective on the far side if he can keep this objective in the game. Alex next turn, the single Hetzer on the middle hill had run away. Everything else is now working its way over. Oh, that didn't get back in, sorry, on the near hill, and didn't run away. So he's figuring out how to get to that objective. Over the hedges is the quickest route, but they've got a very poor cross check. Hetzers, it's a 5+, so he's going to not risk getting stuck on a hedge, and he's going to take the long way around. Tried to follow me, but that didn't work. But he has one tank within 4 inches of that objective. So it comes down to what happens for the next American turn. The Hummels, they've all moved over now. You can see there's lots and lots of targets for them, but they suffer a penalty when they move. And everything that can get around the smoke screen is ready to shoot. But there's no successful hits. everything that's shooting has got a slow firing or overworked kind of rule. So he has at least got himself into a position to contest that objective and hope the shooting doesn't go well. Now, the shadows, guys, sorry about the shadows. Next turn, Peter's moving his infantry to assault those Hetzers, but he really needed to move them in front of the Hetzers to try and push them away from the objective in the assault. But he's getting in and about them, and he's manoeuvring everything for the final push. The 76mm, by the way, the single 76mm, it ran away, which isn't good timing, but there's plenty of other things left there on the table. He really just has to bail out 2 Hummels because the Hetzer itself is bailed. And when it came to shooting, that wasn't a problem at all, to be honest. Shot them both up, which meant at the end of the American turn there were no active German tanks or units within 4 inches of the objective, so an American victory. Well, there you go, folks. It was an interesting game. Peter kind of pushed on one side, stood on the other side, going toe-to-toe against an opponent who was really hard to hit, and he was really quite easy to hit. But when he decided it was time to go, he went in large numbers, and the timing was perfect because he was about to lose the other flank. And that's the way this game often goes, folks. You know, you get a bit of a pivot, you know, just like dust up. You know, you get a pivot, and whoever wins the race wins the game. So what did you think, guys, of the Hetzer list in its performance? Not so much in the list creation. We can all create different lists from what we see in the games, but what did you think about the performance in that mission? Stick it down in the comments, folks, and let us know. Now, in the subsequent games, Peter got another win. Sheer weight of fire, I think, against a German Panzer Grenadier force. And apart from one little sole surviving Panzer Grenadier who was causing havoc around some buildings with a Panzerfaust, the Americans managed to close in and get the kill. And Alex, he also got a win in this game. He was attacking in, I think, counter-attack, I think it was, against British Shermans. And this time the Elephant, it didn't shoot much, but it stopped a hell of a lot of fire coming back because the British player kept his Shermans out of the way in a wood, and at the critical moment where they could have come out and done something, they got stuck in the wood. So, you know, so that was effective from the Elephant, especially when you consider it came down to an assault. 2 or 3 platoons of Hetzers went in, but you know, they've got terrible assault ratings and they couldn't do it. The British managed to stay in every time, the infantry. There was 1 platoon infantry. And then the Elephant went in, caused a kill, and the British broke off, and that was enough to win the game. So the Elephant did what it was supposed to do, but in a bit of an unorthodox way.
16 inches from there, it's just angle of the corner of the...
So do you think I can get to short range with a blitz?
Yeah, just you get bumper to bumper, just about.
Okay, let's try it. 3 plus. Yes.
Things that it's kind of, yeah.
These two. You're dropping on poison. By a figure. So 7. They were going to try and range in this guy here in the middle panther.
Yeah, fair enough.
Check if I'm over the hill or the...
I think you can get it so you can get all through without actually being over terrain. So there you go.
So the second game I recorded was Tom against Laurence. Tom is using his Panzer Grenadiers, his SS Panzer Grenadiers, and Laurence is using his Soviet hammer, which is lots of T-34s, T-70s, IS-2s, Katyushas, and mortars, 6 mortars, so a really strong force. Now the first game, Tom was that close to getting a win against a British infantry force, a fairly typical one where, you know, 6-pounders, hundreds of carriers and armoured cars and M10s and all those kind of things. He was very close, but he just didn't quite get the win. And Laurence, so he, against a Panzer Grenadier force, managed to just absolutely swamp it. It was quite something to see, with just a wall of tanks. And they managed to take the objective without too many difficulties there. So in this game, Tom is defending and Laurence is attacking. The mission is breakthrough. So Tom is on an objective but also has to move towards another objective, and Laurence will be deploying in the quarter diagonally opposite with some reserves ready to come in to that quarter. So it's a bit of a pincer movement, but at the same time subject to potential pincer from the defender who's in 2 diagonally opposite deployment zones with reserves that can come on either way. So it's quite a challenging game from how you're setting up your attack and your defence. So let's go over and see how it went. We join the game as Laurence is taking his first move up with his tanks, and he's using his mortars and Nebelwerfers to start shooting up the defenders. Got ranged in there but didn't get any kills. And then against the half-tracks, now Laurence doesn't yet know those half-tracks are anti-tank 9. He thought they were maybe anti-tank 7. But they were a viable target for his Katyushas, and he got 2 potential bales but only ended up with 1 bale. No kills, and you know that those kills would have helped him a great deal. And then here his tanks, as you can see, are just all funneling through the centre of the table, aiming for that platoon. Lots of direct fire going on, but there's nothing really getting done in the way of hits at the moment, because they've got on the ground and got slow firing, or overworked rather, weapons there. But plenty of dice getting chucked in, and it certainly looks pretty scary from the defender's point of view, seeing that pouring forward. And then on the flank, the infantry and the T-70s are shooting up the nearby platoon of Panzer Grenadiers. But you know, there's something very suspicious looking about one of those T-34s. I can't quite put my finger on it. Tom is starting his turn by popping his Stug ambush, facing right down the road, effectively hitting those T-34 platoons in the open. And then a blitz move brings the, oh dear, they're anti-tank 9, Stummels up onto the hill, and he gets his reserves first turn, so along comes 4 Panthers as well. They're really building up the pain for those T-34s. As the Panthers are moving on to the table, they've only got 1 dice each and only got 1 bale. The Stug ambush, however, got 6 out of 8 hits, which is quite nasty. The result of the Stug firing, there was some saves done, but otherwise it was down to failed or past firepowers, leaving 2 dead and 2 bailed. Critically, notice the position of the 2 bailed tanks in relation to that Panzer Grenadier in the woods. And now the Stummels, and they managed to get 5 hits on that near platoon. And after some really terrible saving throws from Laurence, there is only 1 tank left in that platoon, and even that is bailed out. And Tom's looking to range in his mortars, but to no real effect this turn. Now Tom moved that Panzer Grenadier into the woods in the hope of catching some bailed out tanks, and it couldn't have worked out better. The only counterfire came from the armoured car on the hill, and it did nothing. No tanks were close enough to counterattack, so 2 bailed tanks dead. For motivation, Laurence didn't unpin the infantry, didn't get that T-34 back in, but it didn't run away either, so it's still on the table. So Laurence, who wants to stay in the game and hope his reserves arrive early, has moved the T-34s around a hill to reduce the line of sight on them, and is going to just try and keep pushing forward. The infantry in the houses and the T-70s are going to try and keep some pressure on those infantry and maybe get side shots on the Panthers. But there's no effective hits. They don't have a great anti-tank value against the sides of Panthers. Tom's keeping his attention forward. He's moved his Stummels back onto the hill using the blitz move. The Panthers are going to come across the table a bit. These Stugs are moving out away from the objective into a position where they can get line of sight on the surviving T-34 platoon. And you'll see there's also that Panzer Grenadier base is moved out again in the hope of picking up some spares, shall we say. So a couple of those tanks got hit. Let me see, yep, 2 destroyed. And the Panzer Grenadier is saying, right, this is my moment again for glory. Going to fly in there and pick up some more T-34s. And the Stummels are continuing to dish out the damage and picking off poor T-70s. Oh, sorry, the Panther stayed put and tried to kill the T-34 with no luck. T-34 and some T-70s as well, perhaps, but not a hell of a lot of effective shooting against them from the Panthers. And a bit of short-range Faust firing without anything. Now, the Panzer Grenadiers got into assault, and there was a great deal of toing and froing, and they managed to get a bail on one of these tanks. Now, let me see, the motivations were good for several turns back and forward. See, there's a counter-attack going in, but these guys are green. These Soviets are green. They're only hitting on 5s, so they're staying in there for dear life, hoping that the Panzer Grenadiers are going to run away more than that they're, like going to start clobbering the Panzer Grenadier left, right and centre. But despite a valiant effort from the Panzer Grenadier, he wasn't going to bag any more T-34s, unfortunately. And with a fail of his motivation to counter-attack, he ended up breaking off, and the T-34s breathed a sigh of relief. And a bit of shooting and scooting to end Tom's turn to get those Panthers heading in the right direction. Things are not going Lawrence's way. Didn't get reserves in turn 3. He got a couple of hits on half tracks and they were just bails. It's not going to be his day, unfortunately. And that kind of carried on. I mean, he dropped some artillery to try and whittle the infantry down that were heading over towards the objective, but it's not really having any great effect. And because his reserves didn't arrive in turn 4 either, Tom's further reserves are arriving and getting over towards the objective, so that was kind of it. We just decided to call it. It was a clear win for the Germans, and it was starting to get really punishing for the Soviets, and we've all been there, folks.
So that second game was quite a short game. We had a good chat about it afterwards, and we kind of agreed that the IS-2s were probably better going on the table at the start because of the fear of ambush and the fact you just don't know when they're going to come in. They could be turn 5 before they make it onto the table. They're a strong force to leave off for potentially that length of time. Now, everything went perfect for Tom. He did the right things and it worked. Laurence was a bit unlucky. He could have come out of that initial engagement much better if he hadn't have had such terrible saving throws, especially against the Stummels. Then he would have possibly been able to get a wide flanking move on, leave those Panthers behind in the corner and head off in a mob with his T-34s. to attack the objectives. And if the Panthers went after Lawrence's rear area, they'd be leaving the objective hanging, which isn't a good thing. We also thought about, is it a wise move to just charge right in the middle of the table where you're going right into the teeth of the defence? Maybe it's better to choose a flank and go around the flank and not, especially when you know where the Stumos are, for instance, either mob the Stumos or go around where the Stumos can't get to you, you know. But at the same time, that may well have worked. It's worked for Laurence many, many times where you just charge straight up the table and your numbers just overwhelm the defenders. That could have happened in this game too, and would have put Tom under a lot of pressure if only Tom had missed a bit, and if only Laurence had managed his saving throws a bit. But there you go, that's the game. Anyway folks, that's it for this week. Something a bit different for you, it's not just our usual studio type games, and we'll bring these every time we have a meet. We're going to see if we can arrange one for November as well. We've left it a bit late, but we'll see what we can do. Hopefully you enjoyed it, seeing some different armies and different lists as well. And thank you all for watching. Thanks to all the subscribers out there, and anybody who would like to subscribe, please hit the button. It will help us build the channel, and if you hit the bell button, then I will definitely see you on the next one.